Travel and Things in association with Sun Destinations, iconic destinations with amazing experience, present In Conversation With. I am your host, David Batsoffen, and I'm joined once again by, I don't know how I should actually introduce you, Johan, Snake Man Extraordinaire, and the sort of go-to person for anything reptilian, and that's Johan Marais, who's just brought out yet another book called Snakes and Other Reptiles of Kruger. Johan, good morning. Welcome to you, and congratulations on this wonderful little book.
Morning, David. Thank you. Yes, co-authored, of course, by my colleague Luke Kemp.
Right.
Luke has he's been with us for about 5 years, and Luke is a phenomenal herpetologist, absolutely brilliant.
So why specifically Kruger? And I love the fact that you've just said Kruger, and everybody knows that you're talking about the Kruger National Park. That's the beauty of that park, you know. It's iconic, just the name.
Yes, absolutely. David, it's twofold. You know, many years back, Tor Pinard, who headed the Kruger Park, brought out a book on the reptiles of the Kruger Park, and a very technical book.
Right.
Distribution maps and scientific names, etc. And it was later revised and updated with Niels Jacobson, and it was excellent. It was a really nice book in the day. What we find with places like the Kruger, for every person who goes there and has a bit of knowledge about reptiles and is keen on seeing them and learning more, there are thousands of people that don't have that knowledge.
Yeah.
Or equally as. So it's a very nice series that Struik Nature brought out. They already have one on, I think, insects and trees and mammals. And the way we've put the book together is we've made it very easily accessible to the novice, to anyone who's in the Kruger Park and they look at a tree in Struik Camp, and there's this blue-headed lizard running up and down the trunk, and they can flick through the book, and there's a picture, and there it says that the males have a blue head and breeding, and the females dig a hole in the ground and lay their eggs, and they run around catching insects, and you know. So we've really made it very, very useful for anyone.
Okay. Now, let's start at the very beginning, to quote Mary Poppins, which is a very good place to start. Because you've started off with the dangerous snakes, the black mamba. I like when you say highly venomous. You should have just put steer clear of. Don't mess with.
You know, the story I always tell people about black mambas, you know, they've got this reputation of being so aggressive and chasing people, all that sort of nonsense. In the last summer season, the snake removers in Durban removed just over 200 black mambas from people's houses and gardens.
You
Not in the velds.
Yeah,
over 200. They have this wonderful new source of food called feral cat, and that's my theory.
Okay,
that I really believe that. In any event, for that period of time, there wasn't a single black mamba bite. Not a single one. No one was bitten.
Yeah, but now you say this.
That's surprising.
You say this in the book, and I've heard it from you before, that snakes are not you know, we have this thing about snakes and spiders, Johan. I think when we brought up, we're told, be wary of, don't go near. And this fear is instilled in us to such a degree that any snake, any spider is seen as highly venomous and will come and eat you if given the opportunity. Whereas the opposite is actually true. Even venomous snakes will stay away from you. They don't want to interact with us. They want to steer clear of us, and they only bite when they feel threatened or cornered.
Yes, I often say that snakes bite in desperation.
Yeah.
There's no other choice. And if we look at the evolution of venom, you know, venom came about 80 million years ago, long before the first Neanderthal man made their appearance. So the last thing snakes had in their mind when they developed the fangs and venom apparatus was humans.
Yeah.
And venom is all about food. It's all about immobilizing food and about killing food so that you can eat them.
Yeah.
And if you look at the effects of venom, there's no snake that can bite and kill you in 10 or 20 seconds or 2 minutes.
Mm.
There are very few snakes that bite you and cause instant pain. So there is little benefit for a snake to waste a valuable resource like venom by biting people. But there is an exception, and that's the spitting snakes. And interestingly enough, spitting developed about 15, 17 million years ago, roughly at the same time as the first appearance of two-legged creatures. And it really is about self-defense, and it works. And if you think of a snake in the Kruger, if there's a spitting cobra and impala walks past, he doesn't spit at the impala's eyes. No big threat to it. Leaves it.
Yeah.
But if a badger grabs it, or if if a predator goes for it, then it spits, and it works very well.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing, we think, we as Homo sapiens believe that we're the top of the food chain. And I believe that we're lower than halfway down, because there are even some trees who are more clever than we are, by putting out excess tannins to stop giraffe feeding on them, for instance. We can't do that. We give off pheromones when we need certain things in our lives, but for the rest of it, we're bloody useless, to put it mildly.
Well, the blessing in that is, if you look at the extinction, the more advanced an organism, the quicker they become extinct. So our lichens are going to be around long after we've got rid of it.
Yeah. But as they say, but back to the book, people. That's what we hear about. So you've categorized the snakes, mildly venomous, harmless. What is the difference between mildly venomous and harmless? I know what highly venomous means. That means get yourself to a hospital as quickly as you possibly can, while remaining calm and sort of not screaming for help at the top of your lungs.
So by and large, the highly venomous ones are those that are potentially lethal,
right,
or capable of really giving you a serious bite. In my other books, like A Complete Guide to Snakes, I also talk about venomous, and that would be snakes like night adders and stilettos that can do a great deal of damage, but no fatality, but you could end up in hospital. Mildly venomous is a bite less than a bee sting. It really is insignificant. You don't have to rush.
Not medically relevant. Is that the
absolutely irrelevant? You don't have to disinfect your hands. You don't have to put on an antibiotic cream. When we photograph snakes for our books, we pick up a fair number of bites from heralds and tiger snakes, and there's a bit of bleeding, and that's it. There's nothing. The harmless ones, and of course, you've got to be a little bit careful there, because you've got pythons that don't have venom, but they can inflict a really serious bite.
Yeah.
And even big mole snakes, we see the odd person needing a few stitches. But by and large, the harmless snakes are ones that have no venom that we know of. And that's debatable. Because the snake you show me now, I can nearly see it. That's a spotted bush snake.
This is one of my favorites. This is the most beautiful snake in the bush. It really and truly is.
And they're agile, and they climb up face brick walls and up the bark of trees. So spotted bush snakes, strangely enough, we clearly classify them as harmless. But what I learned very, very early on in my career with snakes, back in the 70s, is I had a spotted bush snake bite me at Fitzsimmons Snake Park. And the bleeding was surprising. So it appears, and we still have to do a lot of research on this, that they do have certain toxins in their saliva that haven't been well analyzed and described. But there's a number of non-venomous snakes that without doubt have some level of venom in their saliva, but without clear venom glands and without fangs. And we see when a spotted bush snake grabs a gecko, for instance, and that's their favorite meal, they don't constrict their prey. They grab it and they bite it, and they swallow it, often half alive. So again, there's probably something in their saliva that is quite toxic to geckos, but it has little effect on humans.
Fair, it's like a daddy long-legged spider. That supposedly that particular spider, if grown exponentially, could kill a human.
As big as an elephant.
As big as yeah, can you imagine if you're arachnophobic and a daddy long legs the size of an elephant wanders into your path?
What we always tell people at our courses, David, is that 95% plus of spider bites are not spider bites, and nobody dies from spider.
Yeah.
In South Africa, we don't have fatalities. So don't worry. They're nothing.
I remember taking pictures of is it a Brazilian bird spider? at a local game lodge. They had one in a tank to show children, but they took it out so that I could photograph it. And I was lying on the floor photographing the thing when eventually it reared up on its hind legs, its fangs came out, and the guide with me said, "That's the picture you want." But I was no longer there. I was gone.
That's quite intimidating.
Those things are there's an elephant-sized spider if ever there was one.
And those fangs, I mean, they're double the size of black mamba fangs.
I know, those things are huge. Why did you add in the reptiles? I suppose, if I may preempt you, it's because there's so many of them in Kruger. You've got the blue-headed agamas, you've got all those little geckos and lizards that are running around all over the place.
Yep. Yes, but basically your chances of seeing one of the other reptiles in the Kruger are infinitely higher than seeing a snake. So the moment you go into any campsite, you've got the striped skinks running around, you've got the agamas in the trees, if you go to look at the rivers or the dams, you've got water monitors patrolling the edges. And then if you stop at a rock outcrop, there's a good chance of you seeing one of the giant plated lizards, or maybe those colorful flat lizards, the platysaurus. There's a lot to see. People would just take their binoculars and forget about the thinking mammals and start looking around. There's some pretty cool reptiles to see.
I keep telling my readers and people who watch this YouTube channel, if you're going into the bush, it's not all about the things that have got teeth and fangs and claws that can kill you and eat you. There is so much going on at your feet and where you don't normally look. Go out for a bushwalk and you'll be amazed at what you actually see. You very seldom see large game because they run away when they see you walking in the bush. But the smaller stuff will watch you go past. And that's the problem. You go past rather than stopping. I mean, I didn't realize how fast the leopard tortoise was until I lay down and tried to photograph the thing. And they trundle past at speed. They really do.
You try to photograph any tortoise, it's impossible because they pull their heads and legs in, and they slowly push the legs and head out. When they're halfway out, off they go. They're gone. It's very difficult to photograph.
They are indeed.
I think another thing that people should be very aware of is with snakes, their presence is often given away by the birds. So listen to the birds. If the birds go crazy, it's usually the bulbuls first, and then the sunbirds and the barbets come in, and the hornbills come in. And the bird's strategy is to rather hang around the tree and see the danger than fly away and you've no idea where the danger is.
Correct.
They tend to mob the snakes and hang around.
Yeah, I've seen a tree full of starlings screaming at something, and then you go up close and there's a python lying under the tree trying to have a siesta, but now it's being mobbed by these blue birds with orange eyes that are intent on giving its position away. Are there the snakes, reptiles, and such like in this particular book, Johan, were they all photographed by you guys, or did you go back into your archives to pull images out? Because you can't sort of go to Kruger for a weekend and go, okay, I'm going to get all the snakes in Kruger for my book in 2 days.
Yeah, a very interesting question, because what I've been doing in recent years, especially with my snake books, is I've really gone out of my way to use photographs of other herpetologists, and especially up and coming youngsters. I think it's such a nice thing if you just start photographing reptiles and you can get your picture in a book.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
Excessive use. Between Luke and myself, we probably have 500,000 photographs on file, just of reptiles.
You're right.
So we made extensive use of other people's. In this book, we did go into our archives, but it's the first book I think that I've ever done where with Luke, where all the photographs are our photographs. We used nobody else's photograph.
Tough luck. Good luck next time, novices. Just on that note, Johan, how many snake species can you find in Kruger? And do they vary from north to south, east to west?
David, it varies dramatically from north to south. It varies tremendously. And what one tends to find is that certain snakes are very abundant in certain areas. So in some areas, you're going to see black mambas more often than others. And There's also a very big difference between the number of species and the number of individuals of a species that you encounter.
Okay.
And we see that with people as well. The people in suburbia that have snake problems, you invariably have 4 or 5 or 6 common snakes that you're going to find. And don't worry about the rest of them because you're not going to see much of them.
Yeah.
So the majority of snakes in the Kruger, you're never going to see. They're either fossorial, they're very secretive, and a large number of our snakes are only nocturnal. They don't come out in the day.
Okay.
So very few people have the opportunity to go night rides, so you're not going to see them.
And even if you are out on a night drive, to spot a snake on a night drive is something quite unusual, to say the least. I think I've been out on one drive. Chameleons are the big things at night.
Yes.
The guides know how to look for them. And once you learn the trick, you realize it's just a trick. But we drove past a tree once. And as we went past, the guy just went, "There's a snake in the hole." He hadn't even moved from that tracker seat. We went back, and sure enough, there was a snake in the hole peering at us. And he'd seen it in the dark. Yeah.
So in a lot of our surveys that we do, we patrol quiet roads at night.
Right.
And we see what crosses the roads. And these patrols are highly successful. In a recent drive in Hoedspruit, up and down towards the bush pub, I think I found 12 live snakes, and 8 of them were stiletto snakes.
Wow. Okay. And what does that tell you? Why such an abundance of stiletto, Johan?
Well, what we do find with not just with snakes, we see the same with scorpions. Certain conditions that we don't really know how to measure trigger certain snakes on certain days.
Okay.
Mole snakes, for instance, are very rarely seen in Gauteng and in Mpumalanga. In the Western Cape, they're common. Up here, we don't see them often, and on surveys, you just about never see them because they're very secretive.
Yeah.
But then I'll drive from Ermelo to Chrissy's Mere one day, and I'll have 5, 6 mole snakes crossing the road in one day. So it's conditions that bring them out.
Now, you were talking about snakes that people will find. Let's come out of the Kruger for a moment, because I think in an urban situation, the moment people see snake, they reach for a garden spade or a stick because they just want to beat the thing to death. And those are invariably brown house snakes, which are harmless. And they kill things like rats.
Not always.
Really?
So here,
you see, that's why I don't touch these. That's why I don't touch these things, and I have friends like you on speed dial.
Here at Pretoria East, where I live in Vaarpadrand, and we've got about a dozen snake catchers in the area, and they probably remove more snouted cobras than harmless snakes.
Really? Okay. Yeah. But now the snouted cobra, is that not a new name for the old Cape cobra? Or am I mistaken?
It was the old Egyptian cobra.
Egyptian cobra.
Correct.
Okay.
So it used to be a subspecies of the Egyptian cobra, but when we had a better look at it back in 1995, it was elevated to a full species and not really related to the Egyptian cobra. So it got the name snouted cobra.
Fair enough. And Johan, I mean, you've been in this game for a long time. What got you started? I mean, every other child, I suppose, wants a kitten or a puppy or a hamster, and I'm sure the young Johan Marais wanted a tank full of snakes in his bedroom.
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up in Durban in a suburb called Woodlands, and we encountered 1 or 2 snakes, and they were killed, obviously, instantly.
Yeah.
And then a lot of family holidays were on farms, relatives' farms, in Grootplay, Belfort, Ermelo, and places like Stella and the old Western Transvaal. And every snake that was encountered in every situation was immediately killed. And I had a lot of questions. I would ask them, what snake is that? What does it do? Why are you killing it? And I never really had any answers. So I became quite perplexed by these secretive creatures. And my search for knowledge hasn't ended. In fact, the more I learn, the less I know. So when I recently worked on the revision of the Complete Guide to Snakes, I was talking to my good friend, Prof. Graham Alexander at Wits, and I said to Graham, Graham, we say that black mambas lay their eggs in holes in the ground, but where do you think they lay their eggs? Is it just under the surface? Because if it was, we'd expect to find some doing excavations, which we never have.
Mm-hmm.
Could it be 10, 20 meters underground down an anthill where there's nice humidity, etc.? And Graham said, he says, we have no idea. We don't know. And that applies to Cape cobras, green mambas, and the list goes on and on and on. We have no idea.
So is this a whole new book that's going to snakes and their nests? I mean, because there are bird books out,
yes.
and I've seen people, going around with bird eggs, birds' nests, and you go, really, a whole book on this? And yeah, so maybe I shouldn't be too quick to judge, because there may be snakes in their nests.
Not quite. So the book that Luke and myself are working on now, which we hope to finish the end of this year, is the reptiles and amphibians of Southern Africa. So we're going to have 800 species in one book.
Wow.
Covering every single reptile and frog, with distribution maps, at least 2 color photographs per species. So that's we sort of 95% done.
So not a field guide, if I understand this correctly.
I think one could safely call it a photographic guide.
Okay.
Little paragraph on each species, not too much, otherwise it will be encyclopedic. But having said that, we're also busy with HarperCollins, and Luke and I have signed a contract to do a revision of the iconic Fitzsimmons snakes of Southern Africa.
Okay. Well,
so we're redoing that book in the same format that it came out in 1962.
Good grief. But it must be interesting to see the difference in the way they were portrayed then to the way they're portrayed now, because knowledge has grown exponentially in certain areas. But in certain areas, you guys know absolutely no more than you did in the 1960s, specifically now with you tell me where the mambas lay their eggs.
Yes, so we've gained a rude amount of information. When I did the revision of a complete guide to snakes that came out 2023, the first edition was out in 95, the second one in 2004. We did phenomenally well. We sold over 100,000 copies of this book. And then I thought, well, it's a good time now. It's 20 years later. Let's quickly just revise it, get nice new photographs in. It took me 5 years just to get all the new information into that.
Yeah. You thought it was gonna be a weekend, that you could just
it's not that easy.
Another one of those. Is there, now that this book is out and on the shelves, is there, when going through it, you've gone, oh darn, I forgot X, and then somebody is going to contact you and go, you forgot X, but you already know this?
Not yet. We always we go to great lengths to get books correct, and when it comes out, you go, oh, spelling error that I missed in page 27, or I shouldn't have said that.
It's on page 26. Just as a matter of interest, yeah.
We haven't had that yet, but look, you do have very cryptic and rare species which we obviously haven't included.
Yeah,
you have a blue. So you have the common rainbow skink all over the Kruger Park, where the females and the subadult males have those electric blue tails, and the males are a golden orange yellow color, the dominant males. But then up at Punda, there is a skink that has a very bright blue tail. It's actually not a skink; it's one of the sand lizards.
Right.
And I've never seen it. It's it just enters the northern Kruger, and we have virtually no photographs of it. So we really need to get north of the Kruger into those areas to go and find it and photograph it. So that won't be included.
That's what I was about to ask you. Often you go to a game reserve and they say we've got the big 5, and then you find out they have the big 4, but the leopard that they're talking about is merely a wanderer. It comes in, it goes out.
Yes.
So it doesn't actually live in the park. It sometimes comes in to hunt. Do you find this with snakes? Would snakes come into an area and then leave it, or once they're in the area, they will populate that area and stay there?
So snakes will stay in an area, and they obviously have a distribution, a known distribution.
Yeah.
And on the fringes of that distribution, they obviously become less and less because they're in the marginal region. But the other problem with snakes is that they're just so incredibly secretive. We described a snake in the KwaZulu-Natal Drakensberg back in the 90s called a cream-spotted mountain snake. And it's a black snake with these cream spots in its lips. It has a a strange scientific name of Montaspis gilbo-maculatus. And in the last 20 years, we haven't seen the snake.
No,
we haven't seen it. In fact, I've got photographs in book of the snake that I took, and I believe those are the only photographs available in the world of the snake.
So where is the snake?
So it's still exactly where it is found, which we don't clearly understand. It's known from about half a dozen individuals. One from Royal Natal National Park, the other one supposedly from near the top of Sani Pass. And we suspect that it comes out on overcast days. It likes cold conditions. It's diurnal, but we don't really know. So what we really need to do is go to that area for, say, 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Put up some trap lines, put in some good effort. But the problem with snakes is if you go in the wrong 2 weeks, you're not going to find it.
You're going to be no
and
wiser.
You don't know when the right time is.
The Latin names just roll off your tongue so easily. Do you have a snake named after you?
David, no, I don't. But I do have two lizards named after me. So the late Don Broadley, I found a worm lizard up in Afungi in northern Mozambique that Don named after me, and that's called Zygaspis marais. And then my dear friend Aaron Bauer, who's our top herpetologist in the world, published over 500 scientific papers, described over 130 species of reptiles in a half a dozen different countries. We found a little gecko north of Struik that he named after me, and that's called Pachydaculus marais.
Well, I'm going to tell you, we have a lot of skinks in our garden. They're all over the place. And when I leave the house this morning, I'm going to find one and I'm going to call it Johan in your honor.
So those are all the speckled rock skink,
Correct.
Trachylepis punctatissima.
No, you see, it's like the sickle bushes, Land Rover's Papvillis. People want to argue with me. Johan, the book, is it currently available? And Struik Nature are doing wonderful, wonderful work when it comes to nature books. They really and truly are. And they seem to come out almost as regularly as a James Patterson novel. Literally one a week. There's something that they're putting out. So is this book now available at I like to say, all good and bad bookshops?
Yes, David, yes, it's out. It's available. It's on the shelves. If anyone struggles to find it, it's on our website, africansnakebiteinstitute.com, and we ship it free of charge.
Okay.
So if they battle to find it, just contact us and we will happily sell them one.
Yeah, I'm sure you will. By the way, what is the snake on the cover? Because this image is stunning.
So that's a striped scarpsteker.
Okay.
So you've got the striped and the spotted. It's one of our grass snakes, and the name scarpsteker is so well entrenched. It's a misnomer. Back when the first sheep farmers came to the Eastern Cape and they had sheep killed by snakes, they'd go and look for the offending snake, and it would have been the Cape cobra, but they'd come across the common grass snake, the striped scarpsteker. It was a Dutch word.
Right.
And that's where it got its name from. So it doesn't have the ability to kill a sheep, but we love the name, so we keep it.
And I mean, does it even have an English translation?
Not really. No. So it's like the boomslang. We talk about a scarpsteker.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about the boomslang, which is a tree snake, but a scarpsteker would be a really strange name. It would be a sheep sticker, which doesn't.
A sheep stabber.
A sheep stabber, correct?
Yes.
We say the book is published by Struik. It's available now. And when you, as an author, Johan, and I ask this of all the authors I talk to, if you find the book in a bookstore and it's this way, would you change it so that people could see it? And then would you stand there and go, oh, look, it's another snake book from Johan Marais and Luke. I better get this for my collection, and then see if there's any response from the people standing around you.
It's a lesson that I learned from Wilbur Smith, the late Wilbur Smith.
Yeah.
When he first came out, he went to Foyle's bookshop in London, rearranged his books and put them in front of other books, and they kicked him out of the shop. So yes, we do that.
It's a bit of fun, but it's even more fun. And in this particular instance, there are photographs on the back. There's not your pictures. it's even more fun with authors that I've spoken to who have their pictures on the back of the book, and they're standing looking at the cover, looking at a person, looking at them on the back of their book, and then making comment about, oh, look, it's a book by whoever, Wilbur Smith. Maybe I should buy it. And it's Wilbur Smith standing there.
Yeah.
What can I say? Johan, thank you so very much for two things. One, talking to me this morning. It's always a pleasure chatting to you. And two, for yet another snake book to add to everybody's collection, and specifically people going to the Kruger, who go to the Kruger on a regular basis. It's definitely one to put in your suitcase or in your camera bag.
Well, thank you, David. It's our passion, and we just spread the word. We just keep on chipping away. We passionate about reptiles. We punt conservation and education, and that's what we do.
Great stuff. My guest today on In Conversation with has been Johan Marais. Johan's new book, together with his co-author. I forgot Luke's surname. I'm sorry, Johan.
Luke Kemp. Remember that name. You're going to hear it a lot.
There we go. The book, Snakes, I'm reading it backwards, and Other Reptiles of Kruger is available in all bookstores or via their website now.